Hey y'all, welcome back to another hunting ammo ballistics gel test, and today I've got one of the most heavily requested loads on the channel. We're going to be shooting Federal Premium Nosler Partition in .308 Winchester, both the 150 and 180 grain loads. And here are your boxes for that Federal Premium Nosler Partition .308 Winchester loads. We've got the 150 grain and 180 grain. Both of them have the elk icon, both of them have the elk on the box, so that is definitely sort of your intended game. Let's go ahead and flip it around to the back and take a look at the promo info. Both boxes have the same promo info, so feel free to stop, pause, and read all that if you would like. It just sort of talks about the Nosler Partition line of ammo, which is pretty tough to come by, but I'm glad I was able to get some for you guys. Coming over here to the ballistics table, this is the 150 grain version. Muzzle velocity is listed at 2,840 feet per second. We will be shooting these out of a 22-inch barreled Ruger American, so we'll see how close we get to that 2,840 right there. Probably that was a 24-inch test barrel. I really don't know. Let's go ahead and look at the table for the 180s as well. And these have a muzzle velocity of 2570, so again, we'll see how close we get to that. But as I have come to start always saying, I think the 22-inch barrel is very appropriate for .308 Winchester. The overwhelming majority of hunting rifles actually being used have a 22-inch or shorter barrel for .308, so I think it's appropriate. Let's go ahead and take a look at the ammo. There is your blue primer sealant right there that Federal Ammo has. That's always a nice touch. Let's whip it out. Nickel plated brass case, really clean looking stuff. And there it is, your famous Nosler Partition bullet. Now both the 150 and 180 appear, as far as I can tell, the same to the naked eye, so we're just going to take a look at this one. This is a 180. That's what they look like. Let's go shoot this stuff and see how it does. And real quick, if you're watching this video anytime around when it came out, I'm having a huge sale on my website, masonleather.com. Go check it out and get yourself something. And my test rifle today is my Ruger American Standard, chambered in .308 Winchester, of course. It has a 22-inch barrel. I did have it threaded so I could use a Silencer Co. Hybrid 46 suppressor. And coming on back, I've got it topped off with a Vortex Diamondback 4-16x42 scope. Definitely helps see the gel blocks down there. And of course, I've got one of my handmade leather cartridge cuffs on the buttstock. Check out my website, masonleather.com. I would love to make you one. And I've also got one of my super thick Latigo leather slings on there. Those are also available on my website. And coming around to the other side, I've got to show you my whitetail deer design.
We'll be taking 3 shots from 100 yards, firing into 10% ballistics gel that has been calibrated to meet the FBI's ballistics testing protocol. And while ballistics gel isn't an exact proxy for big game, it does provide a repeatable medium through which to test various bullets and ammo against each other. After the shots, we'll examine bullet expansion, weight retention, penetration, and velocity. My goal is to provide hunters like you and I with the most objective information possible to help us make the best choice for our particular hunting situation. The ballistics gel in this video has been sourced from Clear Ballistics. You can find a link in the description.
So let's go ahead and shoot it. And here are your velocities for that Federal Premium .308 Winchester Nosler Partition load. This is the 150 grain load. Minimum 2784, max 2815, average 2801. And here are the velocities for the 180 grain Nosler Partition. Minimum 2476, max 2504, average 2488. And we are down here at the blocks after shooting those 150 and 180 grain Nosler Partitions out of the .308 Winchester. Some of the most requested ammo on the channel, if not the most requested, so let's go ahead and hit it. Here's the 150s over here. We did capture all 3 bullets. I wasn't going to do that to you with the partitions. We were going to make sure and get all 3. So penetration-wise, we're at 27 inches, 29 inches, and this one is kissing. We're going to give it 31 inches right there on the edge. Those are the 150s. And I came around the other side of the block to try to show you. You can see sort of like a cavity in the front of that bullet there. And then this one right here is the same way. It's twisted the other direction though. So it looks like the tip of these bullets broke up in the front of the block, but the base kept on penetrating through, which is exactly what partitions are supposed to do. And coming on up to the first block, let's go ahead and take a look at the wound cavity. These things in both the 150 and 180 grain weight slammed these blocks around. So they go in, open up very rapidly. By the 1 inch mark, they're opened up, coming on back, and then they start to taper off at about the 7 inch mark. Pretty par for the course for a lot of deer hunting ammo. And the wound track in here isn't, ultra massive, but it's not small either. It's a lot more than you're going to see with your solid copper stuff, not as much as you might see with your ballistic tip stuff. And it's a little tough to see because of the lighting, but there's little fragments of lead all over through this block. So if you're worried about that, this might not be the ammo for you. But if you're looking to put something down with a jolt and then keep on penetrating through, it might just be the ammo for you. And then on to the 180s again. We captured all 3 bullets. We've got one that went all the way to the 3rd block over here. Let's go ahead and look at penetration. This one right here is about 27 inches. This one is kissing the 30 inch mark. And then this one right here went all the way to 33 inches. So those 180s do give you a little bit more penetration. And I'm trying to show you the front of that bullet there. We still have some lead on these 180s as opposed to the 150s that look like they lost all of their lead tip and folded back to that partition mark in the bullet. These look like they have a little bit of lead left over up front. And coming on back, we'll look at the wound track. These ones kick the blocks around just as much as the 150s. Little tough to see in this block. This block's got some bubbles in it. It doesn't affect the performance in any way. So it opens up a little bit, not as explosively as the 150. It looks like a little bit narrower up front, just a hair. And then it opens up, and then it's tapered off by about the 7 to 8 inch mark, similar to the 150s. Here, I came around to the front of the block to see if I can show you sort of the profile there. It goes about like that, and then closes off right here in the 7 inch range or so, and then just keeps on penetrating back. So let's go ahead and dig all these out and take a look. All right, y'all, at long last, we finally tested some Nosler partitions here on the channel. The 150 and 180 grain versions from Federal Premium out of the 308 Winchester. I do have some more Nosler partition loads coming up. Not quite sure when I'm going to get to them, but they're in the queue. I've got them on hand. Let's go ahead and hit the metrics for these guys. Weight retention for the 150s, that's the bullets on the top there. 85 grains, 107 grains, and 113 grains for an average of 102 grains retained weight. That's 68% weight retention. And of course, the Nosler partition, the front portion of the bullet is meant to expand out, maybe break up a little bit. The bullet there on the left lost all of its lead up top. The other two maintained some of the lead up top. And then for the 180s, we saw 113, 115, and 141 grains retained weight for an average of 123 grains. So that works out to 68% weight retention as well, exactly the same as the 150s on average in terms of percentage retained weight. And the base of all of the bullets did hold together just like they're supposed to. Expansion wise, for the 150s, we saw 0.54, 0.55, and 0.56 inches for an average of 0.55 inches expanded diameter. Extremely consistent. That's 1.8x expansion. And for the 180s, we saw 0.52, 0.53, and then 0.84 inches expanded diameter on that bullet on the right there that's all jagged and went crazy for an average of a little bit trumped up 0.63 inches expanded diameter for 2x expansion. So all in all, the expansion's pretty decent. It's at that 2x mark I like to see. On to velocity, for the 150s, we saw 2816 for the high, 2785 for the low, for an average of 2802 versus the factory spec of 2840. So we only came in 38 feet per second slow versus factory spec. That's better than a lot of other stuff that I've seen. I'm very happy with that. And our estimated velocity down there at 100 yards is 2,606 feet per second. Very pleased with that performance. For the 180s, our high was 2505, our low was 2477 for an average of 2488 versus the factory spec of 2570. So the factory spec, this is pretty slow stuff, honestly. There are a lot of 180 grain 308 Winchester loads out there where the factory spec is quite a bit more than 2570. I don't know, it is what it is. It's just what, Federal Premium did with this load. Nevertheless, we came in 82 feet per second slow versus box spec. A little bit slower than the 150 grain load. in terms of versus the spec, but it is what it is, and I've seen a lot worse than that. I just wish it was loaded a bit hotter overall. More along the lines of a lot of other 180 grain 308 loads that are out there. Kind of weird. And our estimated velocity down there at 100 yards at impact is 2,314 feet per second. Penetration wise, this is what everyone wants to know when it comes to Nosler partitions. They're supposed to penetrate nice and deep. The front opens up, and then you've got that partition in the bullet that lets it punch on through. And we definitely saw some great penetration. With the 150s, we saw 27 inches, 29 inches, and 31 inches for an average of 29 inches of penetration. For the 180s, we saw 27 inches, 30 inches, and 33 inches for an average of 30 inches of penetration, so 1 inch more. Excellent performance penetration-wise from both loads. These definitely went deeper than a lot of your other 308 Winchester hunting loads. So if you need a 308 load that punches deep, this could be a great option for you. And then for kinetic energy, with the 150 grain version going on average 2,802 feet per second, we're looking at 2,615 foot-pounds at the muzzle and about 2,261 foot-pounds down there at 100 yards. For the 180 grain version, we're going on average 2,488 feet per second. We're looking at 2,474 foot-pounds at the muzzle and about 2,139 foot-pounds down there at 100 yards. So the 150 grain version definitely has more of an energy punch, and that's due to that velocity. And again, I wish the 180 grain version was loaded a bit hotter. And a quick announcement before we get to my final thoughts: if you'd like early access to my videos weeks and even months in advance of everyone else, become a channel member. The links will be in the video description and the pinned comment. Thanks, y'all. All right, y'all, time for my final thoughts for these Federal Premium Nosler partition loads out of the 308 Winchester, both the 150 and 180 grain versions. I think they did exactly what they were supposed to do. The Nosler partition bullet has been around forever. It's been known to be the bullet to go to when you want deep penetration, and I think we definitely got that. It also hit the other marks pretty well too. Weight retention was pretty good, and I don't expect it to be super high. It's not a bonded bullet. I would expect the front portion of the bullet to kind of break up a bit and in the rear half to punch on through, and that's exactly what we got with both 150 and 180 grain versions. Expansion was pretty good with both of them as well, but that's not what the partition is known for. The partition is known for deep penetration, and we definitely got that with both loads, almost exactly the same 29 and 30 inches respectively. Velocities were also pretty good. I've seen a whole lot worse. The 150s were right up there close to box spec. All in all, I think both of these loads are an excellent option if you're looking for a 308 Winchester hunting load that needs to penetrate nice and deep, and for whatever reason you don't want to use a solid copper monolithic bullet. Those are going to go deeper on average for you, but the classic partition will do it for you too. Now, something that we got to be honest about: the Nosler partition is an old design. It was originally released in 1948. So as I'm recording this right now, it's December 2024 when I'm recording this. We're looking at a bullet that initially it's 76 years old. And a lot of ammunition and projectile advancement, well, projectile advancement more so than ammunition advancement, has occurred in the last 76 years. So the Nosler partition has a lot of stiff competition today. Your solid copper monolithic stuff, your bonded stuff, things like your trophy bonded bullets, your terminal ascent bullets, your Barnes TSXs. There's just a lot of stiff competition. And I'm not sure if you've noticed, but factory loaded Nosler partition ammo has become tougher and tougher to get. It's just not as popular as it once was. It used to be the premium thing for your bigger game hunting, and it's just not the case anymore. There are so many more options today. Based off my own evaluations, if I were looking for a 308 Winchester load for your larger medium game hunting, I'm not sure I would go with the Nosler partition. I'd be a lot more prone to lean towards, I don't know, the terminal ascent or something like that. But that doesn't mean the Nosler partition won't do great for you. So let me know what you think about the Nosler partition. Do you think it's an outdated bullet? Do you think ammo makers need to load it more? If you've used it, let me and everyone else know in the comments how it did for you. And check out my website, masonleather.com, and get yourself some leather gear handmade by me just for you. I've been handcrafting leather gear for hunters for over a decade, and I would love to make you something. And there are hundreds of reviews on my website, so you can see what real hunters have to say about their mason leather gear. And also tons of photos showing all the customizable options, including name, initial, and caliber stamping, as well as wild game designs and more. Everything is handmade by me right here in the USA. I would love to be a part of your hunt through my leather gear. And it helps support this channel, so I can bring you more hunting ammo ballistics gel tests, and lots of other cool stuff in the future. The link will be in the video description and the pinned comment, or you can just type masonleather.com into your web browser.
And click one of these cards for more hunting ammo ballistics gel tests.